Hey everybody, old blue quarterback. Wanted to do a video on fuel pumps, and this is a video I've been wanting to do for quite a while. And it started out, I think y'all have probably watched my hard start videos with the Scout. I had trouble getting the Scout to start, and then of course, in the midst of all that, batteries and a little bit of tuning up, we went ahead and found that their fuel was contaminated with water and sediment, and that, of course, there's a fuel sample. Isn't that awful? So, of course, of the contaminated fuel, I believe we've damaged the mechanical fuel pump. Now, I went ahead and purchased a small electric just to get the truck going, because I want to run it off an auxiliary gas tank and not off the tank that obviously has all the fuel in it. So that's the backstory on that. And then what we wanted to do is just talk a little bit about the different style fuel pumps, and I laid a few out. So the first one we bought is electrical, obviously, and it's just a 12 volt. It's just a 12 volt pump. Got this really cool switch. I love this little thing. But anyway, you just hook it up to the battery. It's labeled out in, should use a fuel filter with it. And these are cheap. You get them online. I think this is $11. Amazon. That doesn't even say where it's made, but I'm sure it's China. We know that. But, yeah, there's nothing wrong with these. And the reason why I picked this one out specifically is because it's actually rated. It says it's the marine style, so it's actually rated at 3 to 4 psi. Now, why is that important? So the first thing with fuel pumps is, what pressure do you want? And psi is pounds per square inch, and it's very important to match that to, especially with carburetors. So this is going to be mostly geared towards carburetors, fuel pumps and carburetors. Now, if you look up, I'm going to go back to the Honda. If you look in the book for Hondas, and it's pretty hard to see, so I'll just read it to you. They're only calling out fuel pressure between 2.4 to 3.1 psi and 2.2 to 3 psi for the preludes. So one's for the Accords, one's for the preludes. That's for the carburetor. So these pumps generally, and I'm going to tell you right now, people are going to argue with me, put out too much pressure. Most of these are 6 to 7 and 8. And these are the cheap ones that you just go to the parts store and say, hey, I need an electric fuel pump real quick, and that's what they're selling you. There's different names for them. I think this year they're called Edelbrock. It's a solenoid that pops back and forth in there, right? Pop, 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 pop. It's got check valves. There's nothing wrong with the pump, but that's way too much pressure for most Honda carburetors. And I read on the forums all the time, guy puts brand new fuel pump. And even the ones you buy from Honda, I think it's a Carter in-tank, they make too much pressure. So you're either going to have to actually get a gauge, which I have a nice little low pressure gauge here I'm going to be using. You either have to get a gauge and check the pressure to make sure, or you're going to have to get yourself a new fuel pump. Now, the only bad thing about too much pressure is you're overloading your carburetor. So a carburetor, of course, and we kind of all know this, when you're filling a carburetor, you're just filling the bowl with gasoline. That's the only thing the fuel pump is doing, is filling this bowl up. That pressure is held back by a needle and seat assembly. A little needle in an orifice is holding the pressure back with a float. That's all it's doing. So if you give it more pressure, you can and will overcome that needle and seat and float assembly, and they all do it. So the carburetor may start and run. You flip the switch and you fill your fuel bowls up, and that's why guys like these electric pumps. They've gotten away where they don't like mechanical tried and true pumps anymore, which is fine, except these have been around probably 100 years. There's nothing wrong with them. Tried and true, and they work and they last as long as you don't run water and garbage through them. So what we've got is some aftermarket tomfoolery where it's all the wrong stuff. And that happens, and it's frustrating because, one, the carburetors, they don't make carburetors anymore, but a lot of people use them, and you want to be able to just go to the parts store and buy a pump that works. So I think that is what I'm reading with carburetors. And then you'll hear a guy, well, it started up, ran fine, I let it idle, and then all of a sudden it started going right, because it runs on the fuel in the bowl. Well, as you overload the bowl with fuel, because your pump is on, this is going to get higher and higher, and that does affect how it runs. It's going to get richer. It's going to start dumping raw fuel into your car. It'll run for a while, and yeah, you might be able to get down the highway with it, but you're going to have all kinds of erratic behavior, and it comes back to fuel pressure. So that's when I want to make a statement on these little electric, you read every forum. First thing a guy says, oh, you're having trouble with your carburetor, put this electric pump on there. That you got vapor lock, you got this, you got that. These mechanical pumps that have been around for, like I said, 110 years, all of a sudden they're junk now. You know, they worked on everything from I wouldn't say a Model T was gravity, but they basically work. And this is a brand new one that I had laying around, and it works on this. The cam hits this plunger, and it squirts fuel out. The great thing about these mechanicals, and this is probably the second most important thing about this style of pump, is the suction side of the pump is very, very good. You can draw with this type of pump probably at least 10 feet. You can also run this dry. You're not for a very, very long time, but if this runs dry and your motor's running, or for some reason this cam is going, nothing's going to happen to this pump. It's just a diaphragm in here. And that's why these pumps are great, and that's why OEM used them, until carburetors were done for. They were low pressure, they were no muss, no fuss, they were easy to make. They always prime. They're very good at priming. You can lose prime with these, but it's rare. They'll suck up all kinds of garbage and junk off the bottom of your tank, and your vehicle will still run. Very, very reliable. Very, very rare that they go bad unless you put stuff into the diaphragm. And that's probably what I did with that one out there and damaged it. So I got this nice Holly one. Pretty cool. It's actually got a replaceable, I think you can clock this, turn it, and I think you also can replace that diaphragm. I'm pretty sure. It's got the in and out. Yeah, nice pump. Now, again, the problem with this pump is, why didn't I just put that on there? Well, it tells you right here what the pressure runs at, and the problem with these mechanical pumps is, again, they run too much pressure. So even this one says it runs 6.5 to 8. Well, on a quadrajet carburetor, you're pushing that needle in the seat. It might run 6 to 8, and that's probably varies with RPM, obviously, but that would be fine for short periods. But I bet you this pump will overload this needle and seat, and you'll start flooding your carburetor. So these are really good to use with a regulator, and a pressure regulator is important. And obviously on fuel injection cars, they use a pressure regulator all the time, but you don't see it too much, especially on stock setups. So that would be great with a return type regulator. And I probably will try to use this pump. I mean, it's brand new. These are very expensive. They've gotten to be way over $200. If the gallons per minute is high, and I kind of need some of that, because I do run ethanol in that vehicle quite a bit, so I need an little bit extra. But we'll look into that. So that's important. And then, of course, the guys, and again, if you're dealing with pressure and volume, they are related, but they aren't the same. And that's probably the third point of this whole video. And I do work in industry. I work on machinery for a living, and we had trouble with a pump the other day. Yeah, we had trouble with actually there was a flow switch on a pump, and a flow switch on a pump in line would tell how much fluid is actually going across, not pressure, volume of fluid. And the flow switch kept tripping out for low volume. And of course, one of the guys is like, well, just turn the pressure up. Well, you turned the pressure up, and it made it worse. It went off quicker, and we tried to explain it to them, and people get this confused. Higher pressure doesn't always mean you know, that you're gonna get more flow. There's a drop off point, and actually the Holley gives you the graph of here's your pressure down low, and you can see as you get higher up on these pressures, everything's going downhill. I hope you can see that, and that's even with the electric pumps and everything. And especially up here, you can tell it drops way off. You kind of go off the cliff as you get to the maximum. So if you're running at 4, and here's your flow, and then you're like, I need more flow, I'll just jack it up to 10. You're losing. And that's a concept that people just fail to. This is not the best graph, and I tried to find some other graphs. That is a concept that people just they can't grasp. I don't know why. Higher pressure doesn't always mean more flow. It can. I can't find a graph on this one. It can, and then some of them don't drop off at all. You go up to 22, and this one's only dropped off a little bit in the flow, but lower pressures, you know, more flow. It seems like a simple concept to me, but it's not to most people, and I'm just telling you right now, a lot of you are probably laughing, but it's almost like a every 6-month conversation with people over that. So you want to kind of take that into consideration. Gallons per minute is important, and PSI is important, and they're related, but they're not the same. That's my statement. So what are we going to do? Well, obviously I'm going to get ready to button this carburetor back up and run it. I've got it cleaned up pretty good. I actually seen some crud in there, and I need to clean it one more time. And then we're going to use this pump just to fill the carburetor, make the vehicle run. I'm not going to mess with mechanical pumps and take that off the engine and all that stuff, because like I said, I think I'll have too much pressure and that'll just cause more trouble. And we're going to see what we got. So the other thing I just want to talk about, and this is more related to Honda. You know, most Hondas, it is an in-tank pump. And the reason why it's an in-tank pump is the fuel is around this motor body and it keeps it cool. That's important. The second thing in these type of pumps, and ththese are actually a gearator type pump. You know, there's an impeller that spins in there. They cannot run dry, so you have to have fuel right there on the suction side, and they don't have a good suction. So you need to, your suction side of your pump is very, very short compared to the mechanical. Remember, this is the mechanical. Mechanical is on the engine block. The gas tank is in the back, say, of your pickup truck 10 feet away or 8 feet away or 6 feet away. This pump doesn't have any problem pulling that fuel. This pump, not going to pull. This pump, not going to pull. It's not going to pull 10 feet from a gas tank. There's just no way. That's why they always want you to mount these as close to the tank as possible and as low as possible, because you want gravity. You want this lower than the tank so you can keep fuel in it. If these run dry just for a short bit, the fuel runs across this housing, and that pop, 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 pop back and forth. This will overheat, and you'll get loose fittings in there, and it won't pump. There's lots of very, very good videos on how each one of these pumps works, and it's way better than I could ever do. So that's an important thing. And you have to think too that this pump style is just pop, pop, pop. When you hear that pop, 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 it's basically like the old squirt bottle. Pop, 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 pop. That's how it squirts. These pumps is a continuous flow. I think obviously this one's for fuel injection. So you don't want to really think about a fuel injection pump, because there's too much pressure, and you're going to overcome your fuel bowls quickly. So that's kind of the difference in pumps. Each one's got its own, electric, like I said, like electric is great. You just walk up there, the truck hasn't been started, like the old truck hadn't been started in a month. Throw this on, pop, 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 pop. It fills the fuel bowl up, you fire off. There's not a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that premise. The problem is the application is cheaply made pumps. There's no regulator in this besides the check valves. And you're just going to overfill your bowls. They're just going to be full of fuel. It's going to be dumping into the Venturis, and you're just going to be running raw fuel in your car. It may run, it may not. I mean, you go down the road with your foot on the throttle, you're probably fine. It's that sitting and idling and starting and stopping. You're going to have some erratic operation. It's going to drive you crazy. So I would very much recommend checking your fuel pressure, checking it a lot, understanding your pressure. You know, obviously this gauge only goes to 1 bar, 14 psi. That's not going to work on fuel injection with 60 pounds of pressure. You need to understand that. So, and that's really I wanted to go with that. I think I'll probably end up it's just like the battery videos. I'll redo it a few times because people still question it. But it's stuff I read on the forums that people just have the wrong idea. I think they don't mean well. The first thing they say is put an electric fuel pump on it, and then they complain that they can't get their vehicle to start. These are very unreliable. They're just not built well. And if you don't install them correctly, you run them dry, and 30 seconds, a minute, you run that dry, that pump's ruined. So, whereas the old mechanical, you can sit there and crank and run and crank. You're not going to ruin that pump without anything in it. That's just not how they operate. And that's important to understand. That's why they use them for all those years. So again, that's like third time I repeated that, and that's kind of where we're at. And then, you know, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and get this carburetor button back up. I think I'm gonna just take the needle and see that one more time and look in there. I don't have it hooked correctly. The way this needle is hooked to this float is horrible. It's like putting a Swiss watch together. I'll work on that a little bit, and I think we should be ready to roll. I have actually practiced with this pump. It works. It's fine for what it is. It's, you know, I might actually mount this. I'm thinking about mounting one of these in a tank, but I might mount this. The problem again with this is you have to have the tank higher than the pump to keep fuel going to it, and that's really important. It's kind of a little unwieldy out there trying to get something started, but we're close. But that's going to be the talk about fuel pumps, mechanical, the solenoid operated electrical, the regular electrical pump, right, that you see for fuel injection that goes in your tank. There's a reason why all these have that application. You just kind of have to understand that. And each one has its own benefit, and each one has its own drawback. And once you understand that a little bit better, I think you can use the right one for the right application. And appreciate you guys looking. Please like and subscribe. Enjoying doing these videos. It's kind of been interesting. It's fun for me. And remember, support 3gs.com. That's what it's all about. Thank you. Have a good one.